Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk podcast. Now, if you've been following our conversations over the past few months, you'll know we've spent a lot of time talking about employer branding, candidate experience, talent attraction, and what organizations need to do to stand out in an increasingly competitive talent market. But today, I want to challenge something that I think many of us have taken for granted. We've believed that people join companies because of the employer brand. Today, I'm not so sure. When I look at some of the organizations doing a great job attracting talent, I notice something different. Their leaders are visible. They're sharing ideas, telling stories, building credibility, and creating trust long before even a recruiter reaches out. It does raise an interesting question. Have we reached a point where candidates trust leaders more than they trust employer brands? And if that's true, does leadership visibility become one of the most important employer branding investments an organization can make? Now, to help unpack that, I'm joined by someone I've been looking forward to having on the podcast for quite some time now. Sam Baruah has spent close to 2 decades at the intersection of corporate communication, employer branding, and talent attraction, working with some of the world's leading organizations. But what I appreciate about Sam is not just his experience, it's the way he challenges conventional thinking. Whether he's talking about measuring the ROI of employer branding, the changing role of leadership, or how AI is reshaping communications. Sam has a way of asking the questions many of us are thinking, but very few are actually talking about. One idea really stood out to me at a time when organizations are investing heavily in employer branding. Sam believes candidates are increasingly making decisions based on something much simpler: the leaders they can see, hear, and trust. Now, that really resonated with me because at Let's Talk, we've always believed that employer branding isn't just built through campaigns or careers pages. It's built through people. And I couldn't think of anyone better to explore this topic with. Sam, welcome to the Let's Talk podcast. It's really great to finally have you there.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm really happy to be here. I think you are doing a fantastic job. I think it is one of the very unique podcasts we have in India. Employer branding is, though it's like becoming popular, I don't think a lot of people are doing such a dedicated work, right? So I think you are doing an amazing job, and I'm really honored and happy to be here.
I'm so glad. Well, the honor is all mine and the pleasure is all mine, but not for too long, Sam. I always start with a statement that makes a few people uncomfortable. So let's see how comfortable or uncomfortable you get. Have we reached a point where candidates trust leaders more than they trust employer brands?
Yes, definitely. No, I think rather than see, like let's go back a little bit. So even before employer brand, like when employer brand was not thing, so what people used to look at, like your corporate logo. So if you have great retail brand, that used to be enough because you will say, okay, I'm going to join, say, Coke or Pepsi or whatever. So that was the thing. After that, the next generation, started asking this question. Okay, you are a profitable brand. I know have like a lot of money, but no, are you like good with the employees? Like, do you provide work-life balance? Are you doing things for your community and things like that? So that gave whole, definition or rise to this employer brands like that. Like people are not just looking at the shiny corporate brand. They want more. They want purpose and things like that. So companies started, slowly building this employer brand, which is separate from the corporate brand, right? It doesn't talk about, how many products you're selling, but what actually you're offering the candidates. Why should someone consider you, right? Now that has been a stable for some time. As what happens like when something like becomes successful, more and more people, adopts it. That's why when you look at the employer branding, now it's becoming pretty much generic, right? So every company is claiming they're giving like great work-life balance. They're providing your food at office, providing transport, providing learning and development opportunities, conferences and things like that. So what is that makes you unique, right? And when you are running a company, you cannot really wildly do something unique. So if you're like say a small startup and just got funded, probably you can do some wild stuff, but more mature companies, they have headcount, they have like rules and regulation, they need to comply with a lot of things. So it becomes very difficult for you to come up with something unique EVP or employee value proposition. Now that scenario, what you have the leaders who are the unique to your brand.
Yeah. Do you think candidates are becoming more skeptical of polished employer branding? And then, as you said, they are looking at leaders now, so they can genuinely relate to. So, do you think that's what's happening currently?
Definitely. This is happening across marketing, not even employer branding. People are really suspicious of, very polished marketing because we have, so how whole marketing has evolved. Companies have sold a lot of things which are not actually good just via marketing. So people have learned the lessons and there is a low trust about which is something that's very polished and corporate and things like that. People kind of smell that, and employer branding is same. Like if you put something like really polished, really produced, really corporate, can just think like, yeah, I mean, this is not probably true. Like it's too good to be true, right? But when you do authentic employer branding using your people, your leaders, people can verify it. So if I'm someone who's expert in employer branding, for example, like you can go and verify and look at my LinkedIn, look at my blog, and you can check if I'm like telling the truth or not, right? If I'm not telling the truth, you will say, oh, this guy just talking, he doesn't know actually anything. But if I have a substantial body of work, you can find it out. So that is more believable for candidates.
Yeah. I mean, you said a little while ago that, 20 years ago, employer branding was very different.
Yeah,
Was it even called employer branding? I don't even know
yeah.
what it was. People proudly at that time said they worked for a Coke, a Pepsi, as you said, a Microsoft, an IBM, or a GE. Today, I hear people say they want to work with a particular founder, CEO, or a GCC leader. Now, talking about GCC leaders, has a GCC leader become the new employer brand?
Yeah, definitely. If you look at GCCs, it's more complex when it comes to employer branding, right? GCCs, what the main challenge they fight is that most of the GCCs won't have any retail presence in the market. For example, if you're a European bank, probably you'll be like, oh, great at your Europe, you have a lot of like ads going on there, people know you. But in India, no one knows like what do you do, like, right? So that is the first hurdle you have to pass. And also, by definition, GCCs do work in collaboration with their mothership. Hardly any GC who's sort of like owning and creating a product on their own. Even if you want to like talk about, so it's not like you can take all the credit or ownership. That's why you are already in a disadvantage. Then you have like other GCs who are talking like same stuff, like the pretty much homogeneous benefits you're providing. There, when you have like a great leader who can actually go and talk and be visible, that gives you a huge advantage. Like
Yeah.
people really want to follow these leaders, want to learn from them, connect with them, and they sort of like gets pulled to that brand. So leadership, I think, are like huge advantage for NDGs.
True. From where I sit, employer branding, I feel, has become a lot more human, as you said, authentic.
Yes.
No more polished stuff. People don't experience the culture through a logo. It used to happen once
Yeah.
upon a time. It doesn't happen anymore. They
Definitely.
experience it through conversations and leadership, as you said, and the people they interact with on a regular basis. But do you think organizations have recognized that shift?
Yes, I think it's starting. There are leaders who are like getting like recognizing the power of employer branding. So I think first win for employer branding is having our employer branding team itself. Like 10, 15 years back, there was no employer branding team, like someone from TA or HR or would try to do some stuff like that. But the first win is organizations or leader recognizing there's a need for employer branding and having a team and role, right? That is the first win. Now, second win is the evolution that you have done some stuff that worked in the past, but it's not working anymore, right? Now you're proposing that like your leaders should be visible at all. So this is sort of two-way thing. As our employer branding teams and professionals, we also need to educate our leaders saying that why this is required. And we also need to realize that being a leader, they are very busy people,
Absolutely.
right? They cannot like spend hours and hours writing content for you. So how can you make this journey smoother? How can you have say 30 minutes with them in a week, but still produce some good content? So this is where we need to look and spend our energy.
We've gone to the next question because I was thinking about that. You see, running a GCC is hard work. We all know that.
Yes.
Any GCC leader is saying that, they will probably say amen because it is. But we understand that leadership's job is to focus on business and run the business. But somewhere, is leadership visibility become a business responsibility rather than a personal choice? So, what would you say to a leader who says, I don't have time for all of this?
Yeah. First thing is, I think what I will do is share some market intel with the leader saying whatever we did in the past, you'll be just one of the GCCs, right? You do want great talent to join you.
Great.
So if you want to create an advantage, then this is probably the strongest way to do it, right? I think we need to make the business case first, saying why we are doing it. If I just walk into a leader saying that, like, oh, can you do a podcast? He or she will probably say, okay, I don't have time, or why should I do it?
Yeah.
But if you approach that with a business case, what will be impacting your talent? And if you can show that, and I think leaders are very supportive.
I also think that leaders are very time poor and so much that goes on into doing stuff every day. So there's always that element of, do I have the time to put in the time and effort to put myself out there? Because putting yourself out there means literally you're putting yourself out there. So you don't want to come across as somebody who is not strategic, right?
Yeah.
So that sure is a very big issue. Let's make this practical. Imagine I'm a candidate researching a leader before deciding whether to apply. When I land on that leader's LinkedIn profile, what am I actually evaluating that most leaders don't realize? Because I don't think candidates are judging the leader's writing ability. They're looking for signals. They're looking for authenticity, clarity, values, consistency. What else
Yeah.
are they looking for?
I think two main things that, I mean, actually three things to kind of look for. One is the clarity, right? So what is that you are actually talking about? If you look at when I approach leaders, like I also try to make them realize what they are good at. So if you look at the leaders, like GC leaders, so there will be basically four archetypes. So one will be the builder. So these are the people who are sort of doing something greenfield. They're setting up a new GCC and they can talk about how the journey is going. There will be leaders who are very good at technology. They're a technologist. So they have very deep expertise. Then you have people who are talent champions. So these are people, they thrive on building teams, kind of uplifting others. And then you have the ecosystem connectors who are very good at connecting with different bodies and people and sort of like to have that connection in the market. So when you start, you have to pick what is the strongest trait on your leader, because that trait will make them comfortable. So if you just go and vaguely say that, like, oh, let's start, doing leadership, thought leadership, it'll be very difficult for someone to get started. So first, give the talking point, the starting point. From the candidate perspective, that is the clarity part. So the candidate would like to know what I'm dealing with. If you're like all over the place, say, some conference tomorrow, you're talking about how you build team and things like that, sending a clear signal. Of course, you'll talk about these things, but you need a one pillar where you are deep. So that is a clarity part, your candidate will look at. Second point is they will look for consistency. I'm not just saying leader, like even the companies sort of like no falter here, because we start something with a lot of enthusiasm. There will be a flurry of things happening first 3 months and then sort of things die down. So if you're coming and looking at my profile and see that I made a post like 6 months back, your first thing will be, I mean, is there something wrong with this person? Like why he is not active anymore? Like what happened to his thing? So this consistency part. And also candidates want leaders to be humane. So if you're just like broadcasting and you're not really interacting with anyone, that doesn't send a good signal. So they will also look at this person is providing some gyan and writing this content, but are they engaging with others also? Are they appreciating other content or thought leaders, things like that? Is it two-way interaction? I think these are the three things candidates will look at a leader to really perceive them as authentic thought
Yeah.
leaders.
And I'm glad you brought the concept of humane. I think somewhere down the line, leaders forget that they can be human. And
Yes.
being human is such an integral part of being the leader, which also means that as a human, you will experience a whole bunch of emotions, and including fear, including anxiety, including
Yes.
anger, including all of those things, right? And sometimes there is failure involved. But
Yes.
acknowledging that failure as a learning
Yeah.
and putting it out there, it only makes you come across as a stronger leader. It does not make you come across as a weakling.
Right.
And sometimes I think leaders are very fearful in that way to put themselves out there, but it actually does more good to you than actually doing it bad. But here's something I've been thinking about. Companies right now are spending, I won't say millions, but they are spending on employer branding. So which would include your career site, EVPs and videos and campaigns and hoping to receive awards. But can all of that still fail if the organization's leaders remain invisible or worse, visible for the wrong reasons?
Right. I think what you talk about career site or ad spend and all this thing, I think that is a baseline. So I come back to that point, time and again, everyone is doing that.
Yeah.
every like no reputable company or GCC wants to attract talent. They are running like they have a nice career site. They have the set of benefits and all. Everyone is doing. So if you don't go beyond that, there's no really good reason for someone to choose you, because work in that way is pretty similar. So there will be same set of technologies you will be working at. It's not because it's a GCC, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a firm like boutique research firm, you'll provide probably something very unique. Then you can say that the work you do is like no one else is doing in the world. So that's why you should join us.
Yeah.
But in the GCC, like it will be like same stack of technologies you'll be using more or less in different environments. You have more or less same benefits and things. So if your leaders don't come out and be the torchbearer of the brand, it will have negative impact to your brand. You will lose out on good people. Like it's an advantage all said and done, not that all leaders will come out. So few leaders who actually say that, okay, let me support employer branding, let me be more visible, they have this unfair advantage.
Yeah.
Because as a nature, I mean, what you spoke about, people are very afraid of mistakes. So it's not like tomorrow all the leaders will come and be visible. It's not going to happen. So it's actually an opportunity for leaders to come to this uncharted territory and be the standout people. So your employer brand gets this unfair advantage.
True. Yes, I agree to a certain level from you saying that companies are doing the career sites and EVPs. But from what I see, there are a lot that are not doing it. And there are a lot that are just ticking the box because they have a career site, but is that career site really working for you? Is that experience, the UI, the UX, is that candidate journey really working for you? Is the EVP that you have, is it a global EVP and has it been kind of working for you from a regional perspective? No. Because a lot of people, leaders that I've spoken to, you're like, yeah, we have an EVP. Yeah, but is the EVP working? And was the EVP built like maybe 10 years ago? Has it evolved? Because as a leader, you have evolved, but has your EVP evolved? There's another distinction, I think, which is really important from a leadership perspective. Some leaders become popular online, others become trusted. Those are two different things, right? Exactly what your point was. But what separates leaders who genuinely attract talent from leaders who simply generate engagement online?
Right. I think it's sort of intertwined. If you are someone who only believe in broadcasting, you're not going to be popular online.
Yeah,
Yeah, even if you're like offline, if you're just going and delivering things, it's not going to happen because you feel like you're creating the distance between you and your audience. You're sort of saying that I'm above you and I'm not reachable. So the leaders who will gather this following or aura online will be leaders who are, as you said earlier, not afraid of making mistakes.
yeah,
So, in a life and brand and everywhere, some of the greatest stories come from failures. That is like, as a human, we really appreciate stories where there's a failure, but that didn't like pull you down, but how you overcome that. So that's the greatest story arc, I will say. So that is one. Also, leaders need to realize that like the people are not always looking at criticizing you.
yeah,
Like if there's a typo, more or less people will like forgive that. And also that shows that you are human. And the third part is I talk about the actually engaging. When someone is commenting on your post, are you like commenting back? Are you appreciating what you're saying? Are you like reading similar content in the platform and leaving a comment? So those things sort of make you more approachable. You feel like this person is their leader. I mean, they are not putting them on a pedestal. That is like very old concept. I think when I started working, leaders supposed to behave like that. Not anymore.
yeah. I will go on a limb and say that if I see, and this is me saying that, if
Yeah.
I see a leader's post and it has a typo, I will actually go and applaud
Yeah.
because at least I know that post or that comment is not AI generated. Because look
Exactly.
at LinkedIn now,
Yeah.
everything is so perfect. The
Yeah.
English is perfect. The line
Yeah.
is perfect. I mean, the emotion may not be there because it's AI generated. So if there is a typo, well, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because then I know that you are authentic and you're actually making an effort of writing that.
Exactly.
Let's do a little thought experiment,
Yeah.
if you're okay with that. Okay. If, let's say, Sam, your LinkedIn profile disappeared tomorrow, would the organization that you represent find it harder to attract talent? Because you're pretty well known. You are very active on LinkedIn, right? Have we started overestimating the impact of leadership visibility? Have organizations, started doing that?
Yeah. I think when we talk about employer branding or leadership branding, it is not one thing. This is a mistake we do, like even when it comes to social media. Sometimes we say we have social media, so we should completely ignore offline, load everything on social media. Then things doesn't convert, then you think, oh, social media doesn't work.
Yeah.
So similar thought here, we should never depend on one channel. So it is like small things you put together that gives you the whole result. LinkedIn is good. You should be in social media. You should be visible in your long form content like articles or publications. More so now today because now AI is pulling information from different articles. So first thing, if you search something, you get a AI overview, which comes from the articles published online. If you don't have anything, it will pull random information. And a lot of people, they believe on the AI overview, though it's very faulty at the moment. So we need to really focus on that part also, apart from social media, that you have enough articles or long form content which is floating around in some reputed publications, right? Because AI will pull from that. And third part, you need to be visible in the offline world also. Like for example, your meetups, your tech conferences. So where people actually they put a face to you, they see you talking, they actually come and shake your hand. That gives a lot of boost to your leadership branding.
Yeah.
So summarize not only LinkedIn because this all platforms owned by other people.
Yeah.
LinkedIn tomorrow may think, we don't want to do LinkedIn anymore. Platform is shut down. So what are you going to do, right? So don't be over dependent in one channel, but be present wherever possible in multiple channels.
And this is from an external point of view, where people from
Yeah.
outside the organization. But how important do you think visibility is also from an internal point of view?
Yeah, I think it's equally important. Employer branding is as important for internally also as externally, right? There are a lot of data research that shows the positive impact of employer branding on your things like attrition rate, employee satisfaction, and things like that. So here also, there's a lot of things you can do to make the leaders visible because here again, leaders are the torchbearers of the branding, right?
Mhm.
For example, a lot of companies do things like town halls where leaders come and speak, but town halls are more, business oriented. But you can do other things like, for example, we do a series of coffee chats where we provide small group of people to go and meet the leader over a coffee and ask anything they want to, ask the leader. We
Yeah.
do this listening circles where we put together people from the same work group and they can talk to the leader about how their work is going, any challenge they're facing, improvement they want, things like that. Of course, you can leverage your internet, other things for leader videos, thought leadership, whatever you're producing outside. Also, you can repurpose for your internal, right? It's not like
Yeah.
you have to do distinct two pieces for internal external. A lot of things applies to both.
Yeah.
So you can repurpose that content also, internal platforms. So
Yeah.
these are things you can do to build internal leadership brand also.
Okay, let's finish this by looking ahead. Okay, so I'll say 5 years from now, what will matter more, a strong company brand, or you think a network of trusted leaders who consistently represent their organizations online, offline? And if that's where, in my opinion, we're heading, what's the one thing leaders should start doing today?
Yeah, I think it will be leaders because I don't see anything hugely unique happening on the company side. Even 5 years, probably we have new technologies, we have different roles and all. But yeah, in terms of how you work, your offering, it is going to be pretty much safe. It's nothing going to be too unique. But yes, leaders, we will have very unique people. We have leaders who probably young generation of leaders coming in, they will have a very different way of looking at things. We'll still have people who are from little older generation. So we'll have a dynamic mix of people who are running organization. So the stories, the perspectives will be very unique to each organization. And that is going to make your organization unique. What leaders need to do in terms of, I think it's both of the leaders and employee branding teams to have this conversation and establish that we are in this together. So when I ask my leader to do like to be visible, support my employee branding, I should not load the leaders with everything that now you figure out. I should
Yeah.
have tools, processes like my workflows that shows the leader what I'm exactly asking. Like I'm
Yeah.
asked like 60 minutes a week or 30 minutes a week. Like what is the output going to be from that time they're spending with us? We should have our matrices once we do some sort of campaign. We like start working with leaders. We should be able to show the impact that whole campaign or content that we're generating. I think these are the things needs to be more disciplined. These things are very disciplined when you go to like retail marketing, but employer branding sometimes we still get stuck in like, no, we need to post three things in a week and we need more likes and things like that. It's not really that analytics driven. But
Yeah.
as we mature, I think we need to adapt that mindset also to your input, output, and what is the impact you're making.
I couldn't say this any more louder, and I've said this so many times that employer branding is very, very, very different to product branding.
Exactly.
They're completely two different things. So if any marketing guru thinks that I have done product marketing and I think I can manage employer branding, surely you can manage, but you'll have to shift your mindset because it's a very different entity or the way you look things. But I'll also add another thing. I think 5 years from now on, what I think that many leaders should do and make that as part of their agenda, very high up there, is to mentor incoming leaders,
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
that is so important as part of an agenda, because I don't think a lot of people do that because you're so busy doing what you're doing that the incoming, which you mentioned, the incoming workforce is looking up at you. And so you mentoring them is so important. It also gives them an opportunity of learning and development. But there's a lot of experience that leaders have that they can share. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think mentoring and coaching is it's a great indirect way of doing branding, because when you like mentor people, even they're not working with you 2 years down the line, they still carry that and they talk about it to other people. So you can think of how we still talk about some of the teachers,
Yes.
right? Like many years back, we have good teachers, and we still talk about them. That's their employer brand, right? So, say like when you coach mentor people, some of them will stay with you. They will kind of like, no, be your successors. A lot of them will go out. They'll go and still talk about that. Like, oh, I learned this from someone. Like, I learned this from Bryan. So automatically, Bryan gets a visibility, and your employer branding or your brand, is
Yeah.
spread in a lot more people. So I
Yeah.
think coaching mentoring is very important. It is little difficult, putting into your branding plan, or the output is not, that one to one here. But this, I think, a great addition to your overall leader branding effort.
True. Look, Sam, I am being mindful of time. I have to say thank you. I genuinely enjoyed this conversation. One thing that's become really clear to me is that leadership visibility isn't about building a personal brand for the sake of it. It's about building trust. Candidates don't just evaluate organizations anymore. We know that. They evaluate the people leading them. They want to know what those leaders stand for, what they believe, how they communicate, whether they genuinely represent the culture they're talking about, right? Or are they just ticking boxes? For me, that's where employer branding is currently evolving. It's becoming less about what organizations say about themselves, I think, and more about what people experience through their leaders. That's exactly why, for me, and I'm pretty sure for you, these conversations matter. Now, at Let's Talk, we spend a lot of time helping organizations strengthen their employer brand. But one area I'm especially passionate about is helping leaders find their voice, not by turning them into influencers or asking them to post for the sake of posting, but by helping them share their thinking, tell those authentic stories, build that credibility and consistency, and then, of course, become trusted voices in their industry. Because we know when leaders communicate with authenticity and consistency, they're not just building their own reputation, they're strengthening the reputation of their organization, making it easier to attract talent, inspire employees. Now, before I go, I'll say if you're a leader who's been thinking about becoming more visible but haven't known where to start, remember this. Your voice is one of your organization's most valuable employer branding assets.
Absolutely.
Sam, thanks again for joining me. And to everyone listening, thank you for spending your time with us. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who'll find it valuable. Until next time, let's keep the conversations going.
Thank you, Bryan. It was an amazing experience. I love being here. So looking forward.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.